So there's this part, the observer. I think Eckhart Tolle calls it also the observer. And so like to really go like, yeah, watch yourself. What's going on over Christmas that you can do? And another thing would be really like to really check in with your body and say, how do I feel like even when you go Christmas or when like how do I feel in the morning when I get ready for work and I stand in front of the mirror and brush my teeth like oh, what's actually going on? And sometimes we're like our shoulders are here and we don't even know, right? Until we're like learn how to drop them because we just have this tension all the time and we're like guarded all the time because we have to keep up like all the walls are up and like the expectations and then we don't even know. So yeah, look at all the triggers over Christmas, let me know about it. And like, yeah, being really in your body and observing your body and just asking it, what are you going to tell me? Or even like when you have anxiety, like before an event or something, before you're like opening that door and just say, wow, if anxiety was like my best friend, like what was she going to tell me now? What is it? And
Hello, my loves, and welcome to Create Your Life. My name is Simone Leah, and I am your host. And I am so excited to be here with you guys today. Today, I am bringing the phenomenal Suzanne McAllister, who's a licensed therapist and trauma specialist, in to talk to you guys today about nervous system recalibration, healing trauma, and stepping into your new identity. So, hello, Suzanne.
yes, hello. Hi, Leo. Thank you so much for having me on your amazing podcast. I'm so excited to be here and speak about my favorite topics in the world, which sounds a bit like, yes, let's speak about trauma. But yeah, I love speaking about how to create our new, I feel like our new paradigm, moving away from old trauma models and just, yeah, moving into, yeah, a new time of how we deal with our own consciousness and how we become even more conscious than we are already and deal with all the old things that need to be dealt with.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I love these topics. I love just talking to people about ways that they can move through things and then create their new identity. So I literally love all of this. But I do want to start today with the show question of what does creating a life you love look like to you?
Well, to me, it means really checking in with my body. So I think for years I was very much in my head. So I'm the therapist that figured out when I started to study counseling. And before that, so before I came to Australia, I lived in Spain and I had a holistic clinic there. So I did a lot of counseling there. I worked at a cancer hospice. I did like Reiki and massage and, batch flowers, all the alternative things. And I had not figured out until I came to Australia and studied that I also have suffer from anxiety, right? So I have an interesting upbringing. I had a lot of trauma in my childhood. And yeah, I thought everybody's mind was like this. And then when we study, we have to go through all these tests. And I was like, oh, what? And so that was really, really interesting to me. So I then started to look really deep into trauma and attachment theory. And really, when I turned 40, I studied the Nia technique. So I became a Nia technique. That's like dance movement. It's healing arts and martial arts. And really started to connect to my body because, well, at the minute, like it's in everybody's consciousness when we talk about like the body keeps the score and what really happens and how we can't like rationalize our way out how our body feels and the old patterns that just come up like old computer programs. So for me, that's a long answer to one question. But so to me, living yeah, from my higher self, let's say it like this, is really to be connected to my body every day, to check in what are my needs. And for years I had no idea. I would know what everybody else needed because that's a trauma response, where we do fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Where we fawn is where we figure out who do we have to become to be liked, to be loved, and to have the least damage possible. So I was the queen of that, people pleasing and fawning. Sounds great. And so I did not know like what I needed. So what are my needs? And my needs are like everyday peaceful breathing, connecting, stretching, body, music, doing like my job. I don't feel I'm ever working because I do what I love the best. So I write books, see clients, and do a little bit of teaching as well. And yeah, that's and connect with people that I love and be out in nature. So that's like that makes me happy. All of
I
these things.
love this. Oh, what a good answer. I've never had someone talk about like really feeling into their body as something that really affects the way they create their life. But I'm actually exactly the same. When it comes to creating my life, it's about creating a life that feels good to me, that keeps my nervous system regulated, that keeps me happy, that keeps me feeling passionate, getting out in nature, going for walks, slow mornings if I need them, and so I really love that that's what you spoke into when it comes to creating a life for yourself. Or a life you love for yourself. So I really love that. Thank you.
Yeah. And I feel it's quite new that we actually go like, okay, what does my body need? Because normally we like used to like jump out of bed, there's the to-do list, and definitely or like grab our phone, also very guilty of that, start scrolling, looking at things, and then we're like in a reactive mode straight away. And we're not in this like receiving. So when we can, like, even take that time for the first half hour not to touch our phones, our day will be just so different and we
Yeah.
connect to ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
compared to
absolutely.
comparing because we compare ourselves all the time as soon as we open Insta or don't we? Mm.
There's always some sort of dialogue. Whereas if you can just start the day connecting to yourself instead of anything external, it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah. But it's kind of also like anxiety forming, right? So if we think like there's nothing else, it's just me, no phone, because we're so used to distracting ourselves or like buffering. So I call it buffering when we distract ourselves with different things like, shopping, eating, drinking, drugs, watching Netflix or scrolling, like all the things. So I call it buffering. And when we just think, yeah, just like put our phone away. I actually went to this equine therapy weekend last weekend, and one of the participants said, I'm just gonna leave my phone in the glove compartment. And I nearly had a panic attack. I'm like, I can't just leave my phone in the glove compartment. And I was thinking, wow, how interesting. And so I took it in the room and I had it off all weekend and it was really good. And it was like at the other end of the room, but it was still there. But I felt, wow, how much I need my phone to feel secure because I think, oh, if my girls need to get hold of me,
Yeah.
although, I had given them, and they knew where I was. So if my phone wasn't on, they would have rang the place. And how unlikely was that anyway? But yeah, how we depend on, yeah, distracting ourselves and how if it's just us. So it's like me by myself on my own somewhere, how that can be like the panic. It's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
these feelings come up that I try to not look at.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting because back in the day, years ago, the only phone was the house phone. So it's like you didn't need to be near a phone all the time. And if you're in the house and you heard it, that's okay. And like for me personally, I don't have children. So for me, I'm like, oh yeah, it's nothing for me to not look at my phone for 8 hours if I'm doing something else. But I know that if I had kids like you, I'd be wanting to make sure I'm easily accessible. Like if anything happens to the kids, I need to be on my phone. So I think it's just different times now, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And most people do not like can't actually put their phone away for 8 hours. It's not easy for them at all. Most of my clients, they kind of have like this because it like the dopamine gives us like this dopamine hit when it's like, oh, we post something or it's like this constant connectiveness. But then we are like in a world where we're the most connected as we've ever been and the most disconnected than we have ever been. And
Yeah,
I mean,
look,
that's the
I'm
fact.
going to
Mm.
admit something that I don't normally share with people all the time, but I do share it with people when they kind of get a bit more into my circle. But I literally have every single notification turned off on my phone.
Mm.
So my phone can sit next to me for 4 hours and nothing will happen. Screen
My
won't
phone
light
is
up.
always on silent, like everybody knows that as
Yep.
well. There's no pinging, there's not because that
Same.
no. Because
Yep.
I would get like that would, and also because I see clients, so I wouldn't
Yep.
I wouldn't like that. But yeah, it's always on silent.
Yep.
So I'd have to check it to see who called me because
Same.
there's no getting through. I
Yep.
mean, it's just the way it is. And I like that. I like it
Me
because I
too.
need that for my nervous system for sure.
Yep, I'm
Mm.
exactly the same. It's on silent, no notifications to anything. It makes me so happy. But
Yeah.
let's actually dive a little bit more into the topic at the moment of what are some ways that you're nervous? Because I know you said then that the reason why you don't have it affects your nervous system as well if you do have it ringing and stuff, especially when you're with clients. But
Yeah.
what are some ways people would know if their nervous system isn't regulated? Like obviously we're talking about the obvious example of if you're away from your phone and you're getting anxiety, well, at that point in time your nervous system's not regulated. But what are some other ways that people could know in their everyday life that things are out of balance?
2 glasses of wine a night to wind down would be one. And then it's like, which is, it's not, I'm not saying, well, there's anything wrong with that. But I'm also saying that, a lot of my clients, that's the thing. It's like, no, before they don't have their 2 glasses of wine a night, they can't even, they can't even relax. And that's a
Mm.
definitely sign of there's something going on there underneath all of that. The whole, sleep, when your sleep is disrupted or you can't go sleep or you wake up between especially 2 and 4 in the morning. Um, so that definitely tells you something when you're constantly having like the to-do list and you're having conversations that, like where you're still 3 days later thinking about the things you should have said to your boss or your kids or your partner or where you had a conversation with somebody in a shop and how that could have been. So this constant ruminating or being like in a loop and on this the switching when we catch ourselves to do any of the buffering. So the like when we're there can't put the phone away or we're like scrolling at 11, 12 o'clock at night and we just keep going and we can't stop and find it really hard when we instead of sitting with our feelings. And I don't like it as much as the other person, right? I know I teach it, I do it with my clients, and I don't like it either. I don't want to sit with my feelings. It's painful, it's like dreadful, it's very sad, and it's really hard. But then if we do all the other things, when we like go to the fridge a million times, when we like really distract ourselves with so many things, shopping, over busyness, when we can't, when we have a gap in our, or when there's a weekend and there's no plans for Saturday night, that we feel, oh my God, there's a panic, like what's, when nobody loves us, nobody thinks about us, we're like, all the other people have people, we don't have people, like what's wrong with me? And all of that just keeps going round and round. So they're all signs that something is going on with our nervous system, and that we're, like the wired but tired thing. I know it's such a cliche, but it is really when we sit down, when we think we should relax, and then your partner comes in and you jump up like you're nearly guilty. So now I have a lot of clients where that's the case, and often like. I think all my clients, they're super high functioning. So you would not know. I have clients, they're all over the world. I have clients that have very, very successful businesses. Their Instagram and their Pinterest looks like picture perfect, but they're crippled with anxiety. They have like all the self-doubts. There's so much going on in their bodies and in their minds, but you wouldn't know that. You'd just be, oh, that's another perfect woman with two perfect children and a perfect husband having the perfect life, all of that. So yeah, there's a lot going on underneath. And sometimes we don't even know. We're not even conscious about what is it? Is it anxiety? Is this normal? Should I, this emptiness of like, was that it in our lives? Is that it? Was that it? Is there more to come? The boredom sometimes with like the Groundhog Day. Um, yeah, or being really unhappy in careers and in relationships, staying way too long. Yeah, not really knowing ourselves. So yeah, all of that, yeah, where we're like, something is going on. What is really going on with us? Mm.
I love all of these. There's a couple of things I want to speak to. First thing, I think another one just for you, for the business owner part of the audience is like if you can't actually switch off on the weekend, there's definitely something going on as well. But I really loved what you said about if you're remunerating over previous conversations for 3 days, because that's the sort of thing where people wouldn't go, oh, my nervous system's not regulated. You would just be like, oh, I'm processing still. Or, you would just put that off as, oh, I'm processing. Like, I'm obviously still thinking about it. It's not a bad thing. And so I think it's really interesting that you've said that's a sign of your nervous system being out of whack, because that's
Mm.
probably something that most people aren't thinking of. Um, I would love to know, because we are going to be leaning obviously into trauma a little bit as well, and then coming into the new identity. Does all dysregulated nervous system stem from a trauma, or can you have a nervous system that's deregulated without trauma? So it's just deregulated from lifestyle stresses, but there's no pinpoint trauma that started it.
Yeah. No, doesn't have to be trauma, a dysregulated nervous system. And like we come in and out of something. So it can be situational, right? Let's say you're in a bank robbery and somebody has well, that is a trauma though. Let's not use that one.
Yeah.
So, and that's also like, what is a trauma? We have like big trauma and little trauma. But yeah, so everyday stresses, let's say like at work, super stressful. You feel like, somebody got the promotion, but you didn't get it. So it's not a trauma as such, but it can also trigger things within you. It can trigger where something happened in your childhood and you didn't feel good enough. It can trigger like where your brother was more popular with your parents than you were, like all of these things. So it's not kind of trauma, or it's little t trauma that comes from chipping in the little things that chip away on our confidence and our identity. So, but it doesn't have to be, it can be just situational, where we kind of lose our regulation a little bit, and then we go back to it. But also, I wanted to go back to the point when you talked about, are we processing or are we ruminating? Are we in the loop? So when we're processing, that's a process, right? So there's like a beginning and an end. So we process something, and so then we like go deeper and deeper, and we think about, oh, what did I learn from this? What could I have done better? So next time I would have done this. And okay, so like I'm gonna like create a new process for my company, gonna write this down. That's the new manual, give it to my managers. And so that's processing, which has a beginning and an end. So when we ruminate, you just be like going over the same loops over and over and over and over and over again. And fascinating enough, there's like an addictive factor to this, because it's kind of we're giving ourselves this negative attention, and the dopamine hits still, and it becomes comfortable in a way when we just keep doing this and we just keep doing it. It's like we're like running the same track over and over and over again, and there's the comfort in that, like beating yourself up a little bit. So there's no beginning and no end. It's just a random thing that keeps going round and round, and then we pick another thing that keeps going round and round. So if we then say, wow, like I think I'm really bothered with this, let's process this. And then you sit down with your journal and you go, what are all the questions, and you use, I don't know, like the bonus was 7 hats or 5 hats, whatever it was, like you use a process with this. Then that's a beginning and an end. And then at the end, there shouldn't be any more reason for you to ruminate over
Yeah.
this. You know, you might go like, oh, that was another thing. And then you go like, okay, and then you fit it into the puzzle, but you don't do the same thing over and over and draining your neurotransmitters. And that's a big thing as well. So I studied nutritional therapy as well because there's so much medication and so much medication like anxiety and antidepressant, like, you know, ADHD, so many things that are happening. And often it's just our neurotransmitters that are depleted by our own stress, by our lifestyle, by eating non-organic food, by our soils that are depleted, by glyphosate that's been sprayed on there. And so our neurotransmitters don't have a chance and our hormones don't have a chance to actually recuperate their full strength. And that's why, you know, I also help my clients with that, where we look at their whole lifestyle. That's why it's integrative what I do. So we look at their sleep, we look at like, you know, their chemicals, we look at their food, we look at like, you know, their lifestyle, their sleep, their bed, like everything that I can think of. We'll check that out, like relationships. And then there's like certain neurotransmitters that I know are low, depending if you crave like a stimulant like coffee or chocolate at 3 in the afternoon. I already know like what's going on with you, right? So yeah, that's another one,
Yeah,
another
no,
one to talk
like I
about. Yeah.
love all of this, and I want to speak to something else, but I'm just going to give a little example here of I love the taste of coffee. So I always have a coffee in the morning, but I don't like to be addicted to things. So every year I take 2 weeks off coffee. And then it might take me 3 months to start again, or it might take me a month or whatever. And then I'll have coffee for a while and then I'll stop again. And I really noticed the last time I stopped drinking coffee, how much calmer my nervous system was and how much better my quality of sleep was. And it
Mm,
was insane to me since, as someone who does this every single year, I stopped drinking coffee. And I was
yeah.
like, wow, I don't even think I've ever noticed how much better my system feels and how much less fatigue my adrenals have. Because that's a huge thing. So many people's adrenals are just completely like frazzled, you know? So I think that's such a big thing. And I also was going to say as well, just with when we we're talking about the example of remunerating, I like that you say there's different levels of trauma, because if you're remunerating over a conversation with your boss, it's probably because something happened with your boss that's made you feel into a little bit of a trauma response and remunerate. So yeah, I think it's really interesting because whatever you're remunerating on, there probably was some sort of potentially smaller trauma there that happened, which is why you're looping. So
Yeah.
I love all of this. And I love that when you work with clients, you do that holistic whole view of how's your sleep? How's your diet? Are you going for a walk 4 to 5 days a week? You know, what else is going on in your life? And so I love that you're looking at all of that as well, because I think that's just so important.
Yeah.
What are the things that people can start to do to start to calm their nervous system? Like I've just said there, straight away, your sleep's going to improve and your nervous system's going to calm down if you stop drinking coffee, you know, but not everyone's going to want to do that. So,
No.
what are some of the things that you would say if people
Yeah.
have got a dysregulated nervous system that they could start to implement?
Yeah. And then also like I'm not a fan of extremism either, right? So if you have a coffee a day, it's like not that you have 10. And I only do decaf because I'm actually hypersensitive to caffeine. I like my heart races. I feel super anxious, so I know that, and I love decaf. So I have a decaf, an organic one, love it. Also love the taste of it, so I know that. And then I have chai and and I can have that. But the thing is, yeah, so what we can do is, of course, like we're like, first of all, like checking in with our body, like actually what is going on. We look at our nutrition. It's like, so what is going on with there? I'm a big fan of, so like especially for women, has been shown that your metabolism is revved up by 10% if you have protein within 30 minutes of waking up. So it can be like a little protein shake or a boiled egg or whatever it is. So if you do that, like your blood sugar is like way more regulated and you have less cravings during the day. And so nutrition and having protein every 4 hours is like something that's been really important. The right amino acids super important. So the right food. But then there's also like the hygiene in our heads, in our minds, because we learn like, when we grow up, we learn how to brush our teeth and like how to tie our shoes and how to have a shower. Like we learn all of these things, but how do we actually deal with what's going on in our minds? So one of the things is like a brain dump at night where you like write all the things down that you need to do the next day, maybe even plan it, maybe even write like what you want to eat, when you want to eat it, and then it's out of your mind and you don't have to do that anymore. I'm also like a mindfulness teacher, so I'm on an app called the Inside Timer. That's a free app. So there's so many things on there that you can do, like breath work. I did a retreat with Wim Hof, the Iceman, like maybe 6, 7 years ago when he came to Australia. And so breath work, I love that. Yoga stretches, love that. Walking in nature, touching a tree always grounds me. And people are like, so, like some people give you energy, and some people you just feel really calm in their presence. And some people, they just deplete you. And I'm not saying they're like doing this like on purpose or anything else. It's just like when you can see energy moving between people. So some people just take a little more, and then some people give you some more. It's like this exchange that happens, which is beautiful. But it's very much about like really checking in with yourself and feminine energy and masculine, because often in our jobs, especially when we're entrepreneurs, we have to operate in the masculine way more than in the feminine. And the masculine is where we like fighting and we're pushing and we're like, expanding our energy. And like for us females, that's very much draining. So we are more like receiving and manifesting and, you know, so then when we're like in the job all day, or we're like in meetings all day, or we're like the CEO of something, then we're like, okay, what can I do tonight? And it can be putting the business suit away and wearing something flowery and like going barefoot in your garden and putting on some music and, making yourself a beautiful mocktail and having a bath, or, like all of the things that like that really nourish us. Having a GABA, so I would have like a GABA, which is like one of the aminos to really calm you down, a theanine probably. So there's so many things that we can do to help ourselves. And if like I would always be, I have my own coach that I've been working with for years, and like I have somebody that's like where you have once a week you have that thing where it's like, okay, what are my goals? Who can I be? How can I become who I'm meant to be in this world? Because I think we all have a mission here, and we're all meant to live that mission. And it doesn't have to be, you have to write a bestseller and save the world. It can just be growing a beautiful garden, and just like your energy radiates out when you go through a shopping center, and that will change people. So just being you, it doesn't have to be, your Oprah and saving the world and doing all the big things. You're just like as important, just doing what you are called to do. Mm.
Yeah. No, I love all of that. I really, really love it. And I appreciate that. And I always tell people there's so many things you can try. The best thing is going to be when you find your own way. Like for me, no offense, I don't love breath work. But I do love Tai Chi and Qigong and dance movements and stuff like that, which I know you also like. And so I always tell people, you've got to find what works for you. And I really love that you just offered such a range of things that people can look at. You can look at your nutrition, you can look at your sleep, you can look at where your acids, like your amino acids are at, you can look at where your hormones are at, you can look at how much movement you're doing. There's so many different things we can look at it, and everything that you mentioned. And so there's just so many options, and it really is just about finding the way for you. If
Mhm.
someone is feeling like they are heavily dysregulated, would you also suggest potentially doing some of that deeper trauma work?
Yeah, absolutely. Because without doing the deeper work, it's like, it's like driving your car with a big leak in your petrol and never getting there. And it just like breaks down more and breaks down more every time you fill in more. And then like the hole gets bigger. And at the end, it's just gonna it's just going to stop.
So,
And it's really important. So I work with like EMDR, I work with like deep trauma regulating of our brain. So I'm also like trained with clinical hypnosis like many, many years ago. And yeah, energy modalities. Because when we and most of us, it's only 10% of people in the world that are safely attached. So for many, attachment style, if you don't, yeah, you, I don't know, like, well, let me just like do a little bit of
yeah.
attachment style. So it's like, Bowlby found that out, like, actually, it's not even 100 years ago, doing like some experiment with some toddler and bringing like this toddler and the mom into a room. There was like a babysitter there and some toys. So when we're like safe, when we have a safe attachment style, mom would leave, toddler would maybe cry a little bit and then go, oh, there's a safe person. I can play or I can engage with that person. Mom comes back, toddler goes, oh, mom, there you are, and everything is good. And that's only 10% of the population. So, which means when you were little, you had your needs met, you expect the world to be a good place, you expect that somebody will meet your needs, somebody will feed you, change your diaper, give you all the things. There's no doubt about that. But for most of us, it's not like that, right? And then you have an anxious attached child that then or experienced already that maybe I don't get my needs met. So that toddler, when the mom leaves, will just cry and cry and cry. When the mom comes back and is not interested in the babysitter, not interested in the toys very much, when mom comes back, like clings to mom, is inconsolable, and would never wants to let mom go. And like we still, when we don't heal these things, we actually take that into our relationships. So then we become the person that if our partner doesn't text, or if our partner says, oh, like I have a full on day today, like I can't make it for dinner tonight, let's schedule for tomorrow, then we make that mean we're not important anymore. That person has an affair, they lost interest in us. So all the things that we make that mean when maybe he was just busy or she was just busy. So anxious attached. So we take it, and that's also how we our stress style is attached to that as well. Then we have like avoidant, where this toddler thought it's I can only rely on myself. I can't rely on anybody. So that's the baby that goes like, pff, when the mom even comes back, doesn't want to know the mom, doesn't want to know anybody. It's just like really self-contained and goes like, can't rely on anybody. And we take that. But like, of course, there's this deep, deep down, there's this lack of course, we all want to be loved, of course, but we just don't feel safe enough to ask for that or even to attach. And then we have disorganized, which is a mix of the two, which is the hot and cold. Yes, I want you in my life, but like if you come too close, or I think you're gonna hurt me, I'm gonna run the other way, or I'm gonna like, break up with you before you break up with me, or like not toddler way, but when you're an adult. So all of these childhood wounds that we take them with us. And then together with that, we have like five masks that we also wear on the five wounds that we also have been given. Three of them that most of us have, which is like where we feel abandoned, and the other one is where we have been like humiliated in a way, and we have a fear of rejection or injustice. And so all of these ingredients, they make the big soup pot of us, like the cauldron of who we are. And so on top of that, then you have traumas that might have happened. You might have death in your family, abuse. There might have been divorce. There's so many traumatic experiences that we can have. And so you have all of that. And if we don't heal that, it's like our computer has all the tabs open and the energy goes here, there, and everywhere. And we'll always have the feeling there's something missing. There's something going on with us. Like, I don't fit in. We can fake it really well. We wear like the masks amazingly, but like deep down, it's never where we feel like completely content and where we completely feel we've arrived and we belong and we're good. So yeah, if we don't do the deep work, we just always are running and faking and masking, and years go by and we do really well with this, and on the outside it looks amazing, and on the inside many of us just feel really lonely and disconnected, and um, yeah, like there's like we have a big hole in our heart that is never filled, no matter how many compliments we get or how often our partner says something, or what car is in our garage or what job we have. It's just never enough if we don't heal, the basics that we all, and all of us have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for sharing all that. On the actual doing of the work, I know you said at the start that you also are like, you know, I don't love feeling my feelings, but I do it sometimes anyway. And so, like, with the person who's sitting there going, okay, well, like, does that mean every time I'm triggered and everything I'm not regulated, I need to do a 3 hour process? Or, what can that actually look like for someone who is wanting to move through that? Is that 2 hours a day for 3 years? Because I don't think we're never going to be done with the work. But from
No.
your point of view as a licensed therapist, what is a way that people can start to move
Yeah.
through that stuff, regulate their nervous system in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming? Maybe they see a practitioner once a fortnight, but they do some stuff at home as well. What could all of that look like?
Well, that's a very good segue to this is why this book happened. Oh, where's my book?
Oh, we can't
Can't
see
see
it.
it.
There
I
it is.
can't see it with
Yes.
my beautiful. Yeah. So the anxiety detox, I wrote this that it's a 30-day process. And so every day has a tool, every day has something, and it comes with a video series that you get every day where you get a 7-minute video, and like today we're doing this and today we're doing that and today we're trying EMDR self process and today we're doing this breath work and today this is the journal prompt. And so it like includes like all and everything out of my toolbox. And I wrote this book for me because I've been using these things for a long time. And so I always would write them down anyway, and then I'd share them with my clients, or I'd teach the same thing. And then they said, well, can we have this in a book? Like, because that would make it so much easier. So if your trauma affects you every day and you're dysregulated, there has to be the work. Well, like for me, for myself, that's what I had to do. For years, I would see somebody regular, and then I would do all the techniques that I talk about in the book as well. And we can do that every day. So where we do our own housekeeping every day, where we understand what triggers us, where we learn like what other processes, where we do proper processing and not ruminating, where we go like, oh, that's it. So we can either take it to session next time, or we like do a process ourselves that's like in the book, and like we journal it and we do it and we're like, oh, that's where that comes from. And then it's often like stuck in our body though. So that's where it's very hard to do deep things by yourself because you just can't. It's like you just need somebody that guides you through, somebody that knows how to navigate it, because we also tend to, when it hurts too much, we avoid it, right? It's like, I don't know how you're in the gym, but if it hurts too much, I slow down, I do something else, I grab my phone. And it's the same with trauma work. When it gets, we can't do it ourselves. We just need somebody that guides us, that holds our hand, that goes like, I'm here unconditionally, no judgment, whatever comes up, where you completely safe and you can let go and you can surrender. And when we self-process, we still have to be in control somehow, right? Because what happens if we fall apart and never stop? Which is that's why like your professional is there. Like that's why I work with women. And but yet there's definitely a place for, yes, where women I go like, no, I've had enough. Like I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want this hole in my heart anymore. That's enough. We spend money on cosmetics and on cars and on holidays. And it's like, well, it's time we spend that money on you and to have a really happy, satisfied life. And it opens up so many other ways, because then my clients become happy with their bodies and have orgasmic happiness and things change in so many ways. Yeah, where the joy comes, where it's like they don't care anymore what people think. they go like, no, I'm just going for this. They didn't even know, well, they didn't know who they were on such a deep level because they functioned and they gave the picture on the outside who they are, but really on the inside they did not know who they are yet because that was not healed. Mm.
I love all of that. And I totally agree with you. I feel like you'll never take yourself as deep because you'll never feel safe enough to break down, as you said. So I totally 100% agree with you. And I always do my deeper work with a qualified practitioner. But I also love that with your book, it's empowering people to do some of the work on their own in what sounds like less than 15 minutes a day.
Mm.
And it can be that simple, as you said, of watching a 7-minute video and doing a round of something, it could be EFT or is it EDM? I always get
Yeah,
the
EMDR. Yeah,
EMDR.
EMDR.
I always
There's
get
also
that and I go
EFT.
the
I
wrong
think we
way.
just made up EMDR and EFT together. So that could be a completely new
Could
modality
be, could
for the
be, could be.
tapping and the eye movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
So
that,
there's like yeah, that's in there. There's EFT in there. There's
yeah.
EMDR in there. There's the self process in there. Because I love that as well. And I mean, let's face it, not everybody can afford like, to hire somebody like me for years. And it's also good to go like, oh yeah, where people have a taster. Let me read this book, let me do this mini course. And if I then get stuck, I might give her a call or I see what it is. And also, sometimes it's really good for like teenagers. So I work a lot with teenagers where the moms buy the book and then they, introduce some little things to their teenage daughters or teenage, sons as well. So that's also really good because we want where we can have something and we're like, okay, let's have a little taster. Like, is that it? But I don't, everybody that would listen to this podcast, they would know already that it would just like what I said would just they would go, I know, I know, I know, and would look around. It's like, ooh, does anybody know that about me? Because deep down, they'll know. Like how I knew, I knew always, like I always thought like there's something wrong with me, like that I didn't feel like everybody else did. And I always felt like everybody else really has it together and I don't, and everybody else knows what they're doing and I don't. But on the outside, you would think that about me. But I'm also like new paradigm, like, the time where we like pretend like we are the perfect leaders and we're the perfect women. Now, out of the window with that. Like, let us like embrace our imperfections and go like, I'm so not perfect. Like, I have a lot of great attributes and then I have some completely suck. Like I have no sense of orientation. You turn me around 3 times, I don't know where I come from. And I'm like, that's just the way it is. So, I'm not going to, yeah, that's like I have many great things and then I have got some defects and that's also okay. I'm good with that. So I always hang out with people then who know where they are and I have the expert. I wouldn't go hiking on my own somewhere because I would not return. So I know that about me. But I'm also not like, pretending I know everything or and I do feel like in old days we had to do that because we couldn't let anybody see that we didn't know something or because then like people wouldn't take us serious. And I'm like, no, people actually love it when, I'm just radical honest. I just say, well, this is how it is. I wrote this book for me. I have anxiety. Sometimes I'm invited to a book event or a signing or like even at my book launch in May, I like locked myself in the toilet beforehand and I was like, can I leave now before I had to go on because I did and I was like, oh my God, this is a lot. And then I got through. So I used my techniques and I got through. But I think people go like, wow, okay, if she says that, great, because then I can actually be who I am and I'm still loved and I'm acknowledged and I'm okay the way I am and I'm okay not being okay and I'm okay not being perfect. Like stop with all this the thriving for perfection because that's just such a that comes from a wound, another childhood wound, like the striving for perfection comes from, the wound of like rejection. And then we like need to be perfect in order to be loved. And we like chase this for our life and like enough of it, no more. Yeah, there you go. I'm on my soap. You can see I'm on my soapbox.
No, no, I love all of this. You know, the amount of times I talk about with the audience, they'll know this about having the self awareness of who you actually are and just owning that. Like, to me, that's huge. Like, as you said, like, there are things that you don't do well, there are things that you do well. And I think having that self awareness, it's the same with me. I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm not good at. I know, you know, and that's what helps you to heal as well, is because you know who you are, you know. And so being able to have that self-awareness and being able to go, all right, well, I'm not great at this particular thing, but I'm really great at this particular thing, and I'm just going to own all the things, you know, like I'm totally okay with being exactly who I am. And I think that's so much more powerful, because when you have that self-awareness of who you are and you can own that, then that does give you that ability to get where you want to go, because it is easier for you to regulate your nervous system, because you can just honestly look at the situation and be like, okay, I see where this situation is. And it's a lot easier to regulate everything when and move forward when you're actually owning everything. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? When you're actually honest with yourself and owning it. So I really, really, really love that you brought all of that up, because I 100% agree with it. And I really think that having self-awareness and then owning who you are, to me, they're two of the most important things that you can do. And strengthening that self-awareness muscle is just huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love.
But we have so many blind spots in ourselves, right? Where
Yeah,
then we do really work together with somebody, and I do challenge my clients as well. I'm you know, when I know like, and because you know I do it as well, lying to myself, right? Like, you know, going to the gym and making up all the things and like, you know, so but yeah, so with my clients as well, it's like we have blind spots that we just don't see, and unless, you know, somebody like walks with us and challenges us gently, lovingly, but
yeah,
then that's how we grow, and that's how we actually go like, yeah, okay, I know,
yeah,
I see it. And then when we can acknowledge it, and how awesome when that happens, because then that's just another layer, and that's another level up where we go like, yes,
yeah.
yeah.
I agree. And I love that. Like, I honestly totally agree. I do want to
Mhm.
touch, because you also do a lot of identity work as well. I do want to touch a little bit on how does identity work, and nervous system regulation, how do they work in together?
Mm. Well, I think it's like, again, it's like an integral part. Like one doesn't exist without the other, because like our identity is formed with like, you know, what I just talked about, like the five wounds, the attachments. Yeah, so all of that, you know, creates the, as I said, creates the, you know, as all the ingredients, creates the soup and the personality of who we are and our identity. So for us to break it down, to look at all the aspects, and then to, you know, polish them like diamonds and go like, wow, where did that actually come from? Oh, I just have taken that on because somebody said that and I thought that was the right thing. But I'm actually, do I believe that? No. And then I'll change it. Or when we, so with EMDR, for example, for trauma, it's kind of where you empty, where you go into like a dusty room where all your memories are and you dust them off. And then with EMDR, like the emotional attachment that you have to them kind of dissolves in a way. So they're still there, and you know, like, yeah, you had that memory, but it doesn't impact your identity in that way anymore. It's just a story where you can see it as a story. It's a story that you used to tell yourself, and now you created a new story. And then your identity changes as well. So there's like, yeah, it's all interlinked and it's all, yeah, it all intermingles and yeah, plays a role with all the different parts and pieces that we have.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, I love all of that. I just, yeah, I really love this whole conversation, because I totally
Me
agree with
too.
so much of what you're saying. I'm like, oh, this is great. I love this. And I think, yeah, like that is the thing when you're trying to create a new identity for yourself. It so ties in with everything we've talked about, of knowing where your nervous system is at, knowing who you are, having that self-awareness of yourself, working with a practitioner, doing the daily things that you know are going to help you out. And I think your book is probably a great resource for that, because it's 30 different days, and figuring out what it is that works for you, so that you can create that new identity, you know. Because that's the thing, you can't really create a new identity if you're still like clinging on for dear life to something from the old, and so like I really love that everything we've said ties in so well to
Yeah.
building that new identity as well, and to
Yeah.
becoming that new person.
Because
If
it's like the foundation, right? We're like going down deep in the cellar and looking what is there. And it's funny about identity as well, like Christmas coming up, and then so many of us might have shaped like our identity, and like we like moved away, and then we're like this person, and we think we're this person, and then we go back into our families, and we just feel we're like right back where where people can like, you know just trigger us in 1 second. And, we're like, we did all this work. And then we're like right back to where we were this child that was like throwing a tantrum or like feeling, you want to be in the corner and crying, like all of this. So there's nothing like this Christmas for you to observe yourself and go like, oh, wow. That's because that's gonna be your GPS. That's gonna be your roadmap where you're like, okay, these are all the things that I'm going to tackle next year, because that's really where it shows us, yeah, that's where I'm at. And yeah, it's so interesting that, because some people, they still see us in the way they've always seen us, and they haven't changed, but we have changed so much. But then if we still respond to like their reactions and our reaction, and then we're like back where we were when we were 10 years old or 5 years old, then that's where the healing is. That's like, okay, that's where it lights up. It's like, ooh, in our brain, it's like that's where the little light needs to shine. So we can like dust it off, let it go, replace it, new story, and then like, yeah, call our energy back to us.
Yeah, I do that one actually. I always call my energy back to myself every day. So I love that you mentioned that. I
Yeah.
was going to ask, what are three things you would recommend for someone who wants to start regulating their nervous system and releasing trauma? But I think number one is literally pay attention to what happens to you this Christmas.
Yes. I want to know, like for all of you, I want to know, like get in touch with me. So I'm on my website, SuzanneMcAllister.com, like get in touch with me. I want to know what are the things that happen over Christmas that you went like, oh yes. And it can just be, I don't know, where like a sibling like steals the last piece of Christmas pudding or something, and you have the same reaction or whatever it is. I'd love to know. But yeah, so the awareness of where we observe ourselves, because there's always the part that I do some parts work as well. We're like, there's the part of us that is whole, or our soul that like watches us doing things in a certain way and goes like, oh, how interesting. So there's this part, the observer. I think Eckhart Tolle calls it also the observer. And so like to really go like, yeah, watch yourself. What's going on over Christmas that you can do? And another thing would be really like to really check in with your body and say, how do I feel like even when you go Christmas? Or when like, how do I feel in the morning when I get ready for work and I stand in front of the mirror and brush my teeth, like, oh, what's actually going on? And sometimes we're like, our shoulders are here and we don't even know, right? Until we like learn how to drop them, because we just have this tension all the time, and we're like guarded all the time because we have to keep up like all the walls are up, and like the expectations, and then we don't even know. So yeah, look at all the triggers over Christmas, let me know about it. And like, yeah, being really in your body and observing your body and just asking it, what are you going to tell me? Or even like when you have anxiety, like before an event or something, before you're like opening that door, and just say, wow, if anxiety was like my best friend, like what was she going to tell me now? What is it? And it might just be kind to yourself. Like, be kind to yourself. It's okay to be scared. There's like 20 people that you haven't spoken to, and you don't actually like small talk. You'd rather sit at home and read a book. So, because that's way more who you are. So you're doing this and it's okay. And yeah, also the third thing, of course, is speaking to yourself with compassion. So this self-compassion thing, because old paradigm is also to use blame and shame to motivate ourselves. Guilt, me too, right? Me too. That's how I learned to like motivate myself, to not be arrogant, to be humble, to this is how we keep like on track. So the whole blaming or shaming, not good enough, like everybody else, like all of that is like no self-compassion to go like, oh yeah, what do I need now? Like what would I say to my best friend right here, right now? Because we would never speak to our best friend how we speak to ourselves deep down. So just three things. And of course, like come on a little journey with me, the anxiety detox reset, the 30 days, can't go wrong with that. Um, because it's like, yeah, it's just a little journey to go on and to try something new. Because we all need to go on adventures.
Yes, I agree. And it doesn't have to be travel. I literally wrote a post the other day and I said, I've lived my life living adventures, not necessarily travel, just actually doing new things and being in new places. So I love that you say that. I do normally here like to ask if you have any recommended resources that you can recommend to people, but do you want to talk to them, tell everybody a little bit about your 30-day anxiety detox? Because we'd love to hear
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. So I have a little program which is called the book is called The Anxiety Detox. It's called Therapist Secrets to Finding Zen in 30 Days. That's the book and you can get it anywhere. But I also, if you go on my Insta and on my website, there's a little program that I'm just doing right now where you get the ebook, you get 30 days of a video every day, and you get a handout, you get a cheat sheet, so you get everything that you get like in the book, but you'll have me guide you through it personally. And I think that's on sale for $37 now, or even 27 before Christmas. And so that's like a biggest resort. You can't go wrong with that. And that probably be in the show notes. You find that on my website, you find that on my Insta, and Facebook. Yeah, I would go with that because that's the start of it. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, you've got an impression now like what you would be in for. Just send me a message and we can have a chat. We can just have a chat about it, what that would look like, what do you need, are we a good match? Um, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so where can people find you? You know,
Yeah. So my website is Suzanne McAllister, which is Suzanne, Susanne, McAllister.com. And then it's SuzanneMcAllister.com/30. That's where the anxiety detox reset lives. So that's there. And on Insta, I'm at Suzanne McAllister. And on Facebook, you just find me under my name as well. Easy because we're so good with social media these days. And yeah, the book you find it in Amazon and in all the, usual places. You can order your print copy and your Audible and or your ebook.
yeah. Thank you so much for that. I will link all of that below. So, yeah, love all of that. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Like, it's just been so interesting and so good to hear your thoughts and perspective as a like licensed therapist talking
Mm.
about all of these sort of things because I think a lot of the time these days you're hearing from people who, they're 25 and suddenly they're a coach, or, it's nice to hear from someone who's like, I've got all of this life experience, I've got all of these credentials, I've got all this other stuff. And so it's nice to hear your perspectives on these sort of things with the background that you've had. So thank you so much for being on the show because everything you've shared, there's been so many little nuggets in there where I'm like, I hope the audience is writing that down. I hope the audience is writing this down because it's just
Oh,
been amazing. So thank you for being here.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. I really, really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much.